Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaguecast Fixes Champions. This week we will be talking about Yasuo, Yorick, Yone, and Yuumi, the Y characters. Joining me this week is no Colton, but we got Nick the King Cooper.
Yo, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Pretty well. Excited to talk about these characters.
Yeah, I think they're kind of interesting. I think that we talked a little bit beforehand that a couple of them are, in my mind, close to perfect, but then there's, on the other hand, I would say two that are less perfect. So,
yeah.
Anyways, let's hop right in with Yasuo.
Yeah, and I would honestly be down to talk about Yasuo and Yone kind of as a pair.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's do them as a pair. I think it's actually really interesting.
Because obviously they are going to be linked with one another for the rest of time. And honestly, the only issues I have with either of these characters is their interaction with crit. I think the fact that they get to spike as quickly as they do kind of allows them to come online sooner than any other crit character in the game. And I don't really like that, especially with how crit functions. I don't think you should be able to go crit or IE second, and be able to proc it right away. So it's just one of those things. But I have like the change that they did relatively recently to incentivize building crit continuously versus just building the flat. What they were building Ginsu's, right, and just getting the bonus damage from it.
Yeah, and there was that one point in time where you'd just be building like a crit cloak or something like that, crit cloak and gloves, because that would give you. How much was crit cloak? Either way, it was like a build where you'd go crit cloak gloves for like 1,000 gold or whatever the fuck it is, like 1,200 gold, and you'd have like close to capped crit or like half crit. It was just insane. It was really, really stupid what you could do with like some cheese and stuff. I definitely don't think items should ever be cheesed is like the biggest thing.
Yeah, and that's how it feels with their interaction with crit, honestly. I don't want to like make them weaker or stronger, I guess. I wouldn't want to just take away crit without compensating them somehow. I just don't think they should. I don't think any champion should double their crit chance,
It's a weird thing because I really do think that them as characters are pretty well designed.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
The external things, like how do they work with items? Like my biggest thing, Nick, it's similar, once again, relating to items. I understand why their Qs scale with attack speed, like the cooldown and stuff, because or else they feel clunky. But I hate the fact that these characters' best first item is Alacrity Boot or Berserker's Greaves.
Or like, Zeal. Yeah. Like you shouldn't be getting the damage that they're getting with that item,
Or now like Lethal Tempo with them on the current patch. We're dating ourselves, but preseason 12. It's just like, God, these characters scale so fucking well with attack speed that building attack speed boots is a gross first item for them. And it feels like that could just be solved by having it so that their Q cooldown is like based on like level or something like that. Like rather
having it based on level would be pretty good.
And I understand, like, I guess they want you to, at that point, maybe you could have some weird builds where you're just doing way more damage and not building attack speed. But I guess that I would have to see how that works out, I guess. It would be crazy if, like, Yone's build was, what's the shield bow, bloodthirster, infinity edge, and then just two more 80 no attack speed items because Q scales by itself. I guess there's that problem. But I don't know. It just feels so fucking gross just building shitty items for stats like boots or Zeal.
Or like I think one of their early items is I think it's Mortal Reminder, the one with the crit item plus Zeal built into the anti-heal item, the Grievous Wounds.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just like absolutely disgusting that you would go that, and it's like every single game that you build this on these characters because it's the cheapest crit item, and it gives you attack speed as well. So yeah, I don't know. Having stats do things for one champion that they don't do for other champions is always kind of like a sketchy thing in terms of balance. But again, like you were saying, that's a like kit thing and not so much not a kit thing, an interaction thing versus a kit thing. I think they're really well designed. Otherwise, I think they wouldn't have the play rate and honestly, and the ban rate that they do if they weren't extremely well designed characters.
I think like the like the fact that they were released however many years after each other, but they do feel like they were released like one after another, and their kits intertwined so fucking well, but are so different like in one another. I love the fact that they both have like 3-stack Qs, but they both function differently. Like that's so fucking unique.
They both have shields that they are able to proc in different ways.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's almost like if we were to change an aspect of one of these characters, you have to make a counter change to the other one. You know what I mean?
And I just don't think that would be a good change, you know?
Their alts fucking work together in a synergistic. Oh, it's just so crazy, man. I guess like if we were to look at mechanics that don't intertwine, because I don't think you can change the ones that intertwine, because I would say Q and R are immediately off limits. I would say probably Windwall and Yone W are off limits, which leaves E's, which are both mobility spells in their own way. Yasuo's, I think, is absolutely fine, by the way. I don't think you ever have to change. I feel like it's only toxic late game.
So too.
Early game, it's so slow and kind of clunky, but I feel like he has to kind of be slow and clunky early game. Yone's, I think there's room to change. I'm not a hater. I'm glad we don't have Colton here right now, because Colton is probably the biggest hater of Yone. Ability. Yeah, he's the biggest Yone hater in the world. I personally think it's like really fucking hard to use. I think there's weird aspects on it, but once again, that comes into more balance than anything. Like, does he really need to also get movement speed while he's in it? Probably not. But maybe it just feels clunky without it. But
I think that's the thing with the way his Q works, where it does have a not a channel time to cast or to use it. I think you would end up falling behind if you didn't have that like ramping up move speed. I do think the damage on it is a little questionable, but again, that's something that could be changed. I'm perfectly fine with how it functions in terms of CC. I think it makes sense once you have it down. It could be a little bit intimidating if you haven't figured it out yet, but he doesn't go back if he CC'd. So if you chain CC properly, it's fine. And then he does go back like on his own accord, and he's unstoppable on the way back, which I think is great for the game, because I think it adds so much skill expression for that ability.
I guess if that was more clear, then that would also be like the one thing. But once again, I think we're getting to the point where there's probably nothing we're going to change about these characters. It's more just like clarity and like little things and how they interact with stuff. Like I do agree that I think there's so much fucking skill expression watching Chovy play Yone in solo queue, and I learned that you could, when you're slept by Zoe, you use Yone E, and then you E back when you're about to get slept because you're unstoppable. It's like, that's so fucking cool, man.
He is like the single hardest Zoe counter in the game at the moment.
And then
in the mid lane at the moment,
And then there's other interactions which I'm less of a fan of, but like once again, I don't know if that's like the whole point of the show, right? Like I can go on about the fact that if you use Yone while you're in before your Mordekaiser ulted, and then it times out, he pulls himself out of Mordekaiser ult, that's a little silly. Or same thing with like Tom Kench ult. Like those feel a little silly, but I feel like that's not something to balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, those are individual interactions versus like his overall kit design, So I think I'm in the same boat. I don't want to make any changes. I would hate to see them make the characters more clunky or take out mechanics for that allow for skill expression. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all I have to add on those particular characters.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Like the reality is they're some of the most interesting characters in the game, even if they can be frustrating at times. I think most people, if they take a step back and realize that they're just like well designed and they flow so fucking well together.
Yeah, I think I would agree too. Yeah, they can be frustrating, definitely. But I think those frustrations can be tweaked with numbers. Whereas the kit, I wouldn't change a thing about the kits.
Yeah, it's too fucking cool.
Aside from the crit, I guess.
Yeah, the crit. Yeah, I mean, that's all item stuff. But next is Yorick, who I think has a lot of problems, in my opinion, at least. I haven't played Yorick in a while. Sorry, I haven't played Yorick in a solo queue game or a Summoner's Rift game or whatever in a while. My only recent time playing Yorick is in 1v1. I like to do 1v1 tournaments and stuff. And he's gross because you just build Hullbreaker, Anathema's Chains, and ignore the enemy.
Yeah. There's not a lot you can do at that point.
He's like, I really do think split pushing overall is really weak right now in the game. Like Hullbreaker is a pretty shit item in Summoner's Rift.
Although again, dating ourselves, objective bounties were just added, and that could change entirely if these bounties remain as powerful as they seem to be at the moment.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with this, is the fact that like I think saying Yorick is weak or Yorick is boring and objective focused or whatever, and that makes him bad, is almost not looking at the scope of him, because I really do think split pushing is boring as fuck. But split pushing is bad right now, so I'm less frustrated at it, right? Not very often currently do you lose to a split pusher, right? I think I've lost one. In the last season, I lost one game to a split pusher the entire game. It was a Trundle who I 5-0'd in lane, and then he built Hullbreaker and a bunch of just split push items and just hit the towers the entire game, right? And it was like, that's fucking lame. And I think that's why Riot has kind of made split pushers weak for the most part. Yeah. And Yorick scares me because I think he is the best designed split pusher, like by a lot.
He just has so much extra damage versus turrets with his minions in the Maiden, that it's hard to see someone out pressuring in a split push scenario, Yorick.
Yeah, it's a little bit spooky. I don't think he's that poorly designed, in the fact that I think the ghouls and stuff make sense. I think the Maiden makes sense, as frustrating as it is to play against. The cage is probably one of the coolest mechanics in all of League of Legends, even though it's not properly used, I guess. Like the idea of a cage that's harder to break, but your allies can all gang up on it together and break it quicker, is great. I've never seen a fucking ally hit the cage in my life.
No, yeah. And I kind of dislike how the cage functions. I'd much rather see it turn into something where I don't know, it's I don't know, point and click. You click on someone, and after a short period of time, they become rooted. You know, something like that. But I don't know. I don't like that it's an individual like hits, I guess, auto attacks, because I think that places too much power against champions that can't hit it, and it's too weak against champions that can't.
If you're playing a Nivea, for example, you're not breaking the cage.
Yeah, exactly. It's best to just stay and fight, because by the time you finish 2 auto attacks, you're going to be dead anyway. So I'd love to see it have maybe a health bar, takes reduced damage from AoE, maybe a tiny bit. But I think I'd rather see something like that versus like the number of auto attacks to kill. Although it's a unique like mechanic as part of the game.
I mean, it can still stay as a unique mechanic as long as it's like balanced properly, right? You could have a health bar, and everyone can hit the health bar. It would be different and probably a little bit harder to balance, but I think it's the same idea.
Way to do it. Yeah. Health bar versus individual hits.
I think that's absolutely fine. Like, I think that's probably his most interesting mechanic overall. Like, overall, split pushers are just boring as fuck. They're stat sticks who just, like, try to PvE in a game that is only fun because of PvP. But he's not bad. Like, he's definitely, like, fine. Old Yorick was way more frustrating to play against. People who lived to see fucking season 2 Yorick, or whatever the fuck he's released season 1, where he would just drop all of his fucking ghoul bombs on you and you just want to cry. He's blown up a lot since then, at least.
Yeah, I like how his ghouls function in general. I think they need to take more damage from AoE, and probably I think they need to be a little bit less durable, because it's basically impossible to kill them with AoE spells at the moment. I think, but I think you should be able to summon them more frequently, I guess. So maybe turn down the number of graves required. It's 4 required to summon some. So maybe drop it down to 3, cap it out at 4 or 5 like it is currently. Making them a little bit less durable, but kind of keep them the same. I really like that they enrage and will attack the champion that you mark with E. I think it's a good way to kind of indicate, hey, it's time to kill the ghouls, or hey, it's time to harass Yorick, if he misses it.
I wish they were a little bit easier to kill, but that's once again into balance and stuff like that. It feels like they're stronger, or they're not stronger. They do less damage, but they're harder to kill than Malzahar Voidlings, which it feels like Malzahar Voidlings, the matchup for Malzahar is 100% determined on how quickly the enemy character can deal with Voidlings.
Yeah, God forbid you have a TF as well. Against Malzahar.
It just feels like Yorick maybe could have, like, not that that's a good thing. It just feels like if he hits his E on you, you're not killing any of them before they land on you.
Yeah. And that's sort of where I was going at with how I think they should take more AoE damage. Because I think it would allow them to, it sucks for Yorick if a champion presses a spell and all of his minions die, but I think that's fine for the game to have certain, strong matchups. If that means, like, for instance, Darius has to waste his Q to kill the creeps, it's down for Yorick to trade with himself. And I think that could lead to some more interesting gameplay decisions versus like, well, I've got to run now, or these ghouls plus Yorick. It feels very much like a Lowy like tentacle right now, where like if she hits it or if Yorick hits it, you just have to run. You can't really take the fight because you're at such a disadvantage there.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the only other thing I would be considering is going in a complete other direction, because we do try to think about these things a little bit before we record. I was thinking, what if he went from being this mindless split pushing character, Nick, to being the first character where you have to micro multiple things?
I also thought about that. It's just hard to put it into perspective in currently, because there's no other character that functions. I mean, you could make an argument for clone characters or pet characters like Shaco, Annie, LeBlanc, things like that, where there's a little bit of micro between two units, but it's not true micro like we've seen in
it ain't no StarCraft or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing like that. And I think, I don't know how it works in League, but if it were to go, come to League, I think Yorick would be a fantastic guinea pig for it. I think it would be so cool. I don't necessarily want to bring back like entirely only ghoul gameplay that old Yorick used to have.
Yeah.
But I would like to see, even if the units are uniform like they are currently, it'd be really cool to see him have a little bit more control over them. I just don't know how that would function in League.
It is weird. The maiden is like it feels like a pet, like any other pet character, except that you don't control it. It's so crazy.
It is really weird. Yeah.
And I understand it's probably too strong if you can control it in its current iteration. It does so much fucking damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like nerfing all those things down and making them into like a micro StarCraft, like like not RTS. I guess RTS is the right word. RTS like character where you have like all these units to micro. That would kind of be fun. I don't think it fits into League, and it probably doesn't work well, but like it'd be cool if we had one of those.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool. And like I said, I definitely think Yorick is the champion to do it to if we had to do it to anyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. Next, I guess, is our last character for this episode. It's a little bit of a shorter one, but we're going to be talking about Yuumi.
Boy, Yumi's a little problematic, isn't she?
I used to be on I think Yuumi. I still think Yuumi at her core is good for League of Legends.
I agree.
I think the idea of being able to make characters that are kind of like 1v9 assassin type characters and give them like a mobile enchanter is really cool. Like I think characters, at least like at a competitive level, like Rengar, shouldn't ever exist, but I think they're allowed to exist with a character like Yuumi.
Yeah, if you have to commit like another 20% of your team to making one character viable, I think that's a really good choice to have in the game, like you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that like that at its base is great. The problem is that she doesn't just make these characters good. She makes almost every single character in the game too good, right? Like if you load into a Summoner's Rift game and Yumi's not banned, God forbid you didn't dodge.
God forbid,
You go like the thing Trevor and I will do. We'll go, okay, who are Yumi's like best targets this game? And we end up going, obviously the AD carry. AD carry is always a good target. Oh, their junglers. Okay, their top laner is like a fine one. Oh, their mid one's pretty good though. And it's like, oh, okay, so out of her 4 choices, 3.5 of them are good. And it's almost always like at least 3 targets are good for her to jump on in the game.
Yeah, and that just gives her so much room for error within the team comp. You know, you don't have to rely on just one single character being good. It's like, okay, if my AD carry is doing pretty poorly this game, I'll just hop onto the jungler who is doing really well.
It feels like the only way to change that is like probably removing the stat ball part of it, right? Where it pretty well removes her viability with mid laners is the main thing, because she gives a fuckload of AP to characters.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that's a bad thing, right? Like maybe you shouldn't be able to comp AP characters around having Yuumi, right? It makes sense that they would probably not want her the most, like having like a Syndra, right? Why should Syndra have a Yuumi on her, right? She's a she's a control mage. She doesn't jump into the back line. She doesn't even really get too much in the fight, right? Why should she have the enchanter that needs, like, the whole point of Yuumi is that she's an enchanter that can go into the back line because she can't get hit, right? Like a Soraka should be able to heal a Syndra, but a Yuumi shouldn't be wanting to sit on a Syndra.
It's just so are we just removing her AP? Like,
I think you have to remove, like, or at least reduce them strongly enough that like it's not viable for her to sit on certain characters. Like I think it's fine. Like, once again, there are problems with an enchanter. Like, enchanters are weak in the fact that they get one hit, right? Yumi's weak in the fact that she gets one hit. She does completely disregard the whole, hey, my Janna would be really cool if she was giving me the shield buff or whatever, but she also can't go into their backline, right? Like she can't go past all 5 members when Rengar ults. And Yumi kind of avoids that, but like that should be the trade-off is, yeah, she can do this and enable this character, but she's definitely less good than having a Soraka just pumping heals into like the backline.
That's true. I think I'm sort of fine with taking that away. I don't think it like changes too much, and maybe it does give her fewer options, which could, tone down her power level a bit. I also want to toss out maybe we should. I think we should flip the shield on the passive and the heal on the E. I think her E should heal or should shield for a pretty good amount, and her E should heal her ally whenever she's able to proc it and then jump to someone. I think that like this will like definitely makes her more interactive in lane, where if you want to heal up your AD carry, you're gonna have to hop off and put yourself in danger to keep them a little bit safer. And then a shield is like a temporary shield for her E. It can be fat if we need it to be, I guess. But definitely gives her less like, well, Yumi's just going to heal me up to full because she has the highest like healing in the game, assuming she has mana,
I also think that works a lot better with like, as I was kind of like saying, like the, like, she can follow in like the damage dealers and stuff like that. Why should she be able to top up characters in the backline? She should be giving shields, bigger active shields to engage characters rather than like topping up characters. I think that's like a great way of doing it.
I think this like shifts her more towards like a preventative enchanter versus a reactive one, where you're gonna have to predict the damage coming in and block it if you want this character to be as effective as she can be. Otherwise, like, you should pick, a Soraka, a Janna, something like that.
Yeah, you need some level of like why would you currently pick Soraka over Yumi? Yeah,
exactly.
Right? Like, and there really isn't a good option. Like, the only thing is, I guess Soraka provides a silence, but like for healing and shielding, all Soraka is a less mobile version of Yumi, right?
She does have like more often bigger heals.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of buffing up one character, it doesn't really matter. Soraka's not going to be able to get to that character to heal them.
And like still we talk, like, obviously Yumi has like the buffs and shit, the damage and stats that she gives, which I think removing that, turning her heal into a large shield, like a big shield, so it's like active and kind of like requires timing and stuff, is great. And then have her passive like auto proc be like a heal. So like it could be like Rakan's heal. You know how Rakan, he hit someone with his Q and then after a couple seconds heals. So she auto someone. After a couple seconds, it's going to heal her plus whoever she's on.
Ooh, that would be really good.
I think
yeah. I like that a lot.
It seems to work fine, like in theory at least. Like maybe we're missing something. Maybe like these have gone through playtests. I guess that's the thing with all of our series is we don't know how stuff looks.
That's not our job though.
Yeah, our job is to say cool stuff. But I think it's a great way. Like once again, I've talked on the show at least extensively about I would love her to be able to get knocked off shit. But like I don't think I would be as annoyed at Yuumi if she had these changes, right? Like
she at least has to be like in the fight to be keeping the character she's on safe. It's not just like, well, we poked him down, but it's bot lane, so we don't have all in pressure for another 2 minutes, and now she's just healed the character she's on up to full.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're 2v1ing bot lane and it's a Soraka, right? You really quickly learn that, oh fuck, we can't just hit the AD carry because the Soraka heals them up, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But when you only can hit the AD carry because Yumi's riding them, then that's where it gets kind of frustrating. But yeah, I really do think the active shield feels at least a lot better.
Yeah, and of course, like we're not taking into account any sort of anti-shield mechanics or grievous wounds, like there is a whole
other can of worms that LS has been talking about a lot, active versus passive healing.
I wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Because I think that's something that a lot of people say. Like, you'll see people play against Yuumi and they'll buy Executioners, like 800 gold right away. The issue, again, with Yuumi is that her healing is active rather than passive, right? Passive healing being like, Aatrox has to be in a fight hitting people to heal, right? Meaning, if he's in a fight hitting people, you're applying Grievous, you can build Bramble, all these things will stop his healing. Whereas if you're playing versus Yuumi, it's active, meaning she gets to choose when she uses her heal. So if you buy Grievous Wounds, all she has to do is wait 3 seconds until the Grievous Wounds falls off and then use her heal, right?
Yeah, and of course she's going to be like communicating this with the character she's on, or they're going to be smart enough to recognize that they're low and they should back off for a little bit. Yeah,
and it's just like... I don't know, Grievous Wounds doesn't work currently in its iteration well enough against her, I would say. Changing that to a shield definitely does help a lot. I don't know. I feel like these changes are actually like really, really cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's the more I think about it, the more I feel like this is how a character like this should be designed. You know,
her archetype as like a whole, I think is absolutely fine for the game. It's just currently very fucking frustrating to play against in every single way.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I guess that's kind of it. Unless you have anything else that you want to talk about for Yuumi.
No, I think that's it. I don't hate her as much as it appears the rest of the League community does. I think she's a fine addition to the game and fulfills an archetype that, you know, is unique and fits within the game.
Yeah, no, she's great. I mean, I think like people don't use her to her fullest extent currently, even though she's still OP. And maybe like if Riot nerfs her so she's like kind of fringe viable, we'll maybe start seeing like the actual like fringe viable cases appear in at least pro play. I think in solo queue they'll kind of always just be like, hey, I'm a Yuumi main. I play this every game and I won't really think about what I have on my team, but maybe she will only be good into certain comps, and I think that'd be really, really good for the game. So
awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, that was our second to last episode of ZED Talks. So next week we'll be talking about the ZED characters, which are, I think, just ZED. There's
Zoe Zillion?
ZED Zoe Zillion, Zyra as well.
Zyra.
Oh, there's actually lots.
Everyone always forgets about Zyra.
Zac, Zed, Zig, Zillion, Zoe, and Zyra.
Oh no, we forgot 2.
Yeah, there's 6 of them. They're all kind of like misfits though, so maybe we'll have like a little bit of a longer discussion for that one. And then our plan after that is in January, we're going to be doing a yearly wrap-up episode where we talk about the characters that were released in 2021, meaning Rel, Viego, Gwen, Akshan, and Vex. So we'll do like a quick like little episode about that in January, and then we'll probably be starting new Patreon content after that.
Yeah, we've got lots of very exciting stuff coming up. Aiden and I were just talking about some ideas we had for content for the Patreon show today. So it's I'm looking. You know, ZED Talks has been good to us. I've enjoyed it a bunch. I think we've come up with some really unique like ideas, but I'm very excited to work on some other stuff.
It's gonna be great. Anyways, we'll talk to you guys next week or next month. Bye.
Bye.